Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. We caught up earlier today with Christian Kargl-Simard, who's the CEO of Adventus Mining. They are focusing their attention down in Ecuador, and they are hunting copper, gold, porphyries, and also VMSs. We talked to them about their plan of attack, their business model, cash position, and what they're going to be focusing on, looking to deliver a feasibility study at the end of this year and even a financing prior to that. So lots to discuss. If you want our thoughts and opinions on that conversation, the company itself, and indeed Christian, you can find that at cruxinvestor.com/club, where you can also find detailed company reports and analysis. We've got commentaries from experts from around the world on a variety of companies and commodities, including copper and gold. We've got training courses to help you with your diligence process. We've got summaries of all the interviews that we've done to save you some time, because we know you're busy people. But most importantly, we've got a thriving community of investors sharing their thoughts and ideas with each other in a nice, friendly and safe environment, free from judgment, trolling and abuse. And I hope you think that sounds nice, because it is. Go and join them at cruxinvestor.com/club. And we'd love your feedback too. So do give us a like, leave your comments below. And if you want to see precisely what we talked about today, do take a look in the description below. Christian, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Not too bad. Been really keen to get you on for ages. Not least of all because we've had, one of your partners, Salazar Resources, on here, so we sort of know a little bit about you. I kind of feel we're neighbors already.
I know. I've been watching all the Merlin, Freddie Salazar interviews with interest. Hopefully, I can add something new. Also, some of our investors have been on. I know you've got Brian Dalton at least once or twice on from Altius as well.
Yeah, good guy, really good guy, good company, actually. Hey, well, look, we better do some pleasantries as well. So, where in the world are you talking to us from?
I'm in the ghost town of downtown Toronto right now. There's literally no one here. I broke protocols to go into the office to do this call. So yeah, downtown Toronto.
Fantastic. Okay, well, hopefully you don't get discovered, and hopefully you get home okay. Right, we better kick off with that obligatory 1-minute overview of your business for people new to the story, and I'll pick it up with some questions from there.
Sure. So Adventus chose to enter Ecuador 3 years ago. We could have built a business anywhere in the world. We had the financial backers to do so. We were excited about the geological potential of the country. Like everyone else, I think we see Ecuador as Peru and Chile 50 to 75 years ago. And we were fortunate to partner with Freddie Salazar, the most successful explorer in the country, to build a copper business. Ecuador is the best place to be looking for copper in the world, in my view. And what we've put together is a platform of 3 copper gold projects. We happen to have the most economic copper development project in the world in El Domo. We're pushing that as fast as we can to construction. And while we do that, we're exploring for major new discoveries as well.
Brilliant. Okay, I appreciate that. We better talk about country risk. People look at Ecuador, they don't know it so well. It's worth discussing. They've just had some elections there. So did the right guy win? What's it mean for mining?
Well, we were actually agnostic going into this final round of the election. Both candidates were going to be positive for mining, although very different ideologies. Arauz was representing Correa's party. So obviously left-leaning, maybe closer ties with China, but still a pro-mining mandate. And there were going to be some advantages to such a backdrop. Lasso, though, also pro-mining, pro-foreign direct investment, pro-IMF. So there's a big IMF loan now to the country. So that was important to see. And he's a former investment banker, so really understands the difficult financial position the country is in and what the levers are to get out of that. And mining is really that like the key driver going forward. So Lasso won a few weeks ago the election. He's already publicly stated that he wants to reduce the value-added tax, which will be important for our project, reduces the upfront capital. And he's talking about removing the tax on currency outflows from the country, which should reduce our project financing cost of capital. So I would say it was a positive outcome. international bonds of Ecuador rallied quite hard after the announcement. And I believe all of the mining stocks connected to Ecuador have done well since then as well.
And did it matter who won? I know you said you were agnostic, but did it really matter who won? Because I'm trying to understand, certainly a lot of people watching this, they won't be following Ecuador closely, let alone the politics, but these are planned elections. There's nothing kind of erratic about it. It's a democratic country. Is there anything for anyone to be nervous about in terms of, the South American factor?
Well, there's always the South American factor. The governments go right, left, right, center every election period. I think the most interesting thing going on in South America is what's going on in Peru right now. That's, I think, risk. In Ecuador, as mentioned, either would have been fine. I think if Arauz would have won, it would have been quite negative to the international bonds, to the country ratings. It would have been more difficult for Ecuadorians to access capital. It would have been potentially bad for the country. That said, likely with some higher taxes, certain projects could probably move quicker forward under Arauz government than perhaps with Lasso. So the pros and cons are probably less obvious for the mining sector, but much more obvious for the overall country from an international view into the country.
Okay. Well, okay. Appreciate your view of the recent election results. I want to talk about you guys. So, who are you? Why have you got someone like Brian backing you? What have you done before?
Sure. So I'm a British Columbia raised kid out of Kelowna and Vancouver, BC. A metallurgical engineering background, worked in industry for several years for a company called Dynatech Corporation, which got sold to Sherritt in 2007. Moved to Toronto in 2007, was an investment banker for about 10 years in the mining sector. That's really all I know. Brian became one of my best clients. So I was his financial advisor in multiple transactions. Probably the one that maybe many of you might know is the Chapada copper stream that Altius transacted on, which arguably could be one of the best streams ever done in the mining sector. So a deep friendship and relationship with the Altius Group. And I was fishing with Brian in summer 2016. And he proclaimed at dinner to a group of strangers that I was going to be leaving investment banking and running Adventus. And he never even talked to me about such a concept. But he's been a believer in me, convinced me to leave investment banking. And him and I put together the shareholder base that we have today, and had the trust in me to build a business somewhere in the world, somewhere in base metals. So that's how it all came about.
Okay, great friendship, maybe some wine involved, but what's the relevant experience? I mean, how did you put a team together, and why? You said earlier we could have worked anywhere in the world. We selected Ecuador, so give me the backstory to that.
Yeah, so we were a base metals developer. We clearly wanted to get in the base metal space. The backers that we put together when we IPO'd were Altius, but together with Greenstone, the private equity group in London, Resource Capital Funds, John Tognetti, the chairman of Haywood. Though that group notionally were backing us for a few $100 million. For the first year out of my condo, we looked at 240 assets in 25 countries. We put several $1 billion of proposals on the table. And after all of that, I went to the board and said, we want to pivot into Ecuador. I think they fell off their chairs in the first discussion of that, but they quickly got comfortable with it. And late 2017, we transacted to go into Ecuador. All of the major investors supported us. Since at least 2017, we've raised $100 million in equity in the public market. So it has been a very interesting ride. Definitely would not have guessed we would be pivoting into Ecuador when this company was formed, or talking about building a mine in 2022. But we have, I think, assessed situations, made the right decisions, and then continued to build as we go.
But tell me about that. Right, you had a bunch of sophisticated financiers in the mining space, and you go, hey, we're going to Ecuador. buckle up, and of course they fell off their chairs. You can see why the market might be a little bit slower to kind of react too. So how did you get them over the line? How did they get comfortable? What did you say to them?
Well, let's take a step back and see how Ecuador has transformed in the last few years. It's gone from a country pre-2014 as, wouldn't touch it. And then Lucas Lundin came in, bought Frutal Norte, created Lundin Gold, and really solidified the new platform in Ecuador for mining. Since then, we've got Lundin Gold in operation with Frutal Norte. That's been a fantastic success. They've done everything right. It's exactly what the country needs to see a solid, modern, responsible mining operation. Also, the Chinese government have built a large open pit copper mine called Mirador. So there are those examples in country, but it's not only us that have been attracted to the geological potential of the country. Most of the major Australian companies are there. And I think one of the most interesting stats I like to say is over the last 10 years, most years in Latin America, money raised in the TSX were going to Peru and Mexico. They were perennially the 1-2 in terms of money raised in the TSX. The last 3 years, Ecuador has been number one. So there's been an understanding and appreciation of Ecuador ability to operate there, et cetera. SolGold has been a big success there. Solaris has been recently. So that all plays in the decision of the board that it is an up and coming jurisdiction that investors are interested in. The second part of it and the third part of it is just the willingness of the government to grow that sector. It's been the most proactive government I've seen in the mining sector. And then thirdly, it's about the social license to operate. It always is about that. But that comes down to Freddie Salazar and the good work that he's done. So number one, he's the top explorer in Ecuador's history. Why not get aligned with him? I have a long-term relationship with him as well. So embedded trust there. But also, he's Ecuadorian. His team is Ecuadorian. He built strong social licenses to operate around our projects. And our board was comfortable with that, comfortable that we can actually build a company around these assets.
Okay, well let's talk about Freddie Salazar and Salazar Resources, the company, because that you've signed agreements the company, not just Freddie, right? Can you talk to us about what does that relationship look like? You're the operator. You've picked up a couple of their projects. You've also got some options over, I guess, more the zinc focused projects going forward. So what have you established there? What does that relationship look like?
So as a young investment banker, I went down to Ecuador about 2009, I would say, right after El Domo had been discovered. That's where the relationship with Freddie started. And I think he would tell you that I'm one of the few gringos he trusted over the years. And so it was easy to go back to Freddie in 2017 to restart discussions and see if there were deals to be done with them. I happened to enter a process that he was running to find a partner, and there were multiple interested groups at the table. But I also knew what he was looking for, and that gave me a leg up, I think, on the competition and why we got the deal done initially at Curipamba, and then we expanded that deal because I knew of his team's success in the country. I knew he had a good nose for finding new projects, so we wanted to expand that relationship more than just Curipamba, and we put together something called the Exploration Alliance. Now, initially, we created exclusivity over any projects where zinc was a top 2 metal. There's got to be zinc all over Ecuador. It's never really been looked for. But as the relationship has continued to strengthen, I view the Salazars and the team there as friends of personal friends of the family. We have that trust to look at all metals and all types of projects in Ecuador. So if you look at the first 2 projects that went into what we call the Exploration Alliance, they're both porphyry exploration districts. So we're working together in all aspects. They have some very attractive 100% owned projects that they're moving forward. They're not exactly the type of projects we're looking for. We're looking for large copper porphyry projects primarily. But I would expect us over the next few years to add more projects into that exploration alliance and continue to grow that relationship. It's a different type of joint venture than most. I would say it's the best functioning joint venture I've ever seen. And they're much more involved in the day-to-day than you would see in a traditional joint venture arrangement. We're aligned incredibly well economically by the deals that we have. And the synergy between what we bring and they bring is very clear. And we continue to work that way to a common goal.
But tell me about that. If you don't mind sort of framing up on the detail of exactly what the agreement is, because they've got a 25% free carry, and they get paid a management fee. You're the operator, but they get paid a management fee. Can you just tell us a little bit about that? Again, for people who have not heard this story, let's get into a bit of detail there.
At Curipamba, the deal is we have to spend $25 million in the ground over 5 years and deliver a feasibility study to earn a 75% interest in the project. We are 3.5 years in, and we've spent $30 million, and we'll be delivering a feasibility study in October of this year. Then we're required to fund 100% of the CapEx to get to commercial production. But in doing so, we can encumber 100% of the asset with debt or streaming or other types of non-equity financing. And we have the rights to 100% of the offtake on the project too, which is actually worth quite a bit of money. Once we get to commercial production, we get 95% of the free cash flow out of the project until all of our money is recouped. Then it drops to 75-25. So there is a preferential payback on our side by arranging the finance for the project. Like you said, they get management fees because they're very much involved in consulting and helping with us in the project. We have a preferential agreement to use their drilling company to drill our projects, and we get a very good rate in Ecuador, but they're also making some money off of that as well. In the case of our porphyry projects, it's an 80-20 arrangement. We fully fund to a construction decision. So in that case, if we build something, they do have to pony up 20% to build what likely will be a multi-billion-dollar asset. And there's a standard dilution formula if they don't. But in that case as well, there are management fees payable for consulting, and they're preferred drilling contractors, so they make money off drilling.
Okay, interesting. So feasibility by October, so say Q4 this year.
Yes.
Fantastic. Can you tell us about what you're actually doing at Curipamba, if you don't mind, in terms of exploration, to kind of support this feasibility study or for other purposes?
Yeah, so Curipamba is a volcanic massive sulphide district. Typically, VMS, as we call them, occur in clusters. The Salazars and ourselves really have focused only on El Domo, which is the subject of the feasibility study. We have identified 15 new targets in the district through airborne geophysics that we flew for the first time a few years ago. Now is the fun time of testing these 15 targets, looking for new discovery. So we will be drilling another 4,000 meters this year, testing a few of those VMS targets around El Domo. So we're hoping for new discovery there. But the majority of the focus here is getting El Domo to the position of starting construction in October 2022. So what do we have to do before then? So we are deep in discussions on a project finance package. I think this is really going to surprise the market. We have multiple proposals, about 175 million is the average. There's one standout, and I think you'll see that likely announced before the feasibility study is out. Secondly, we've got the environmental social impact assessment, so the environmental permit that we plan to submit to the government of Ecuador by September. That's a $5 million investment run by Knight Piésold, covering baseline studies that have been going on for years. And then it's a 9 to 12 month approval process from there. And it's the feasibility study that's coming out in October. Subsequent to the feasibility study, it's a full ramp up of the execution team, detailed engineering, et cetera. So we are very focused on building up the team and the capabilities and putting together the money to build this. Why wouldn't you? You got 430 copper, $1,800 gold. The IRR after tax is 60% at current prices. This is a best case scenario for us.
I mean, it's an aggressive production schedule you've laid out, reading through, but, what I'm intrigued is what gives you the certainty around, the mine permit timing. Have you fully sorted out some contamination issues around the metallurgy, which you mentioned in the 2019 PEA? Mining's tricky, right? There's always going to be bumps along the way. So what gives you the certainty around the sort of aggressive schedule you've put together?
So we've built a team of professionals from major mining organizations that fill all of the key positions here, plus an owner's team around the feasibility study, guys that have built mines covering all the different disciplines. We have been, even though our last study was a PEA in June of 2019, we've been doing a lot of engineering, metallurgy, infill drilling, geotechnical drilling, all those things, put together a feasibility study that's not to flip and sell to someone else, to actually build. So sometimes you're actually making decisions that don't help the economics, but help your ability to execute and de-risk execution. It's those kind of decisions that have resulted in a PFS that we completed internally at the end of December that we've used to go out to get project finance. Now we got multiple proposals on project finance with the option of announcing that before a feasibility study is done. That's unheard of. That's really a testament of the strong work that's been done and really the high quality resource that we have. The execution plan has us starting construction October 2022 and starting production in February of 2024. It's a quite a small, simple project. Construction is around 15 to 16 months. We have very good infrastructure where the project is. This is a schedule that has been put together by our technical team who's built multiple mines before. It assumes a 12-month permitting timeline. Our indications are that could be as quick as 6 months, but we've assumed 12, plus some wiggle room in there as well. So everyone that's looked at our execution schedule, including the project financiers, don't see many holes in it, but definitely if there was a risk, it would be on how long the ESIA takes to get approved.
So again, coming back to the MET stuff and your comment from earlier, talking about you can be a little bit less concerned around the economics. Is that your attitude to your MET solution?
So I said I was a metallurgical engineer. There are other metallurgical engineers involved here. Since we took over the project, we've added several $100 million in NPV just by finalizing the metallurgical flow sheet. There's been significant work done since the PEA. What we did was we changed the reagents, we changed grind size, we added a lead recovery circuit. We locked in that flow sheet in the summer of last year. So now the metallurgical program for the feasibility study is just variability work. It's more for operations than anything else. We shipped 10 tons of material from the infill drilling we just completed to Kamloops, BC, to do several tons of that variability work. So metallurgy, I would say, has been the core focus of this project. It's the core focus of any volcanic massive sulphide project. But in this case, we're not only thinking about it from feasibility study perspective, but also operating it and building a geometallurgical model as well. So I'm very comfortable on the metallurgy here.
Okay, so with Curipamba, we're talking VMS, and you've got an exploration program. How much money? I know you've got quite a bit of money at the moment, haven't you? What's the number? 45?
We have 45 million of cash and investments September 30th of last year. We just filed yesterday our year-end financials. So December 31st, that number had dropped to 33 million.
Right. You got a bunch of cash.
Today, we have a bunch of cash. We have enough cash to take us to a construction decision on the project first quarter of next year.
Right. But we're focused right now on the VMS projects, Curipamba. How much are you going to be spending? Sorry, we talked about exploration, but we didn't talk about how many more meters you think you're going to need to drill.
So we spend 85% of our money on El Domo development permitting, everything associated with that. We have 15% approximately, some years it's 20, but 15 to 20% assigned for true greenfields exploration, the lottery ticket upside in the company. We have 4,000 meters of exploration drilling around Curipamba, as I mentioned. We just completed all the drilling we need to get to commercial production on El Domo. So we've been steadily releasing the best copper equivalent drill results in the world over the last few months from that infill drill program. But we're also drilling at our porphyry projects as well. Surgical drill programs around some pretty high profile targets.
That's what I'm intrigued by, okay, because we've been entirely focused on the VMS stuff. You announced at the beginning your focus is on copper porphyries. So just help me understand, where the actual focus is, because I can see where you've been working recently. But when you say we're actually focused on discovering copper porphyries, because the sheer scale and volume of these things, it's very exciting to the market. But how much time and money have you actually spent on those?
Well, since we picked up the Pijilí and Santiago projects, we spent around 10 million US on advancing those projects. 3 million of that was airborne geophysics alone. Let me take a step back at what the vision of this company is. The vision of the company is to put El Domo into production, which will be a cash flow machine to build. My goal is the next Lundin Mining. I mean, there are a whole host of base metal companies that started on high-grade copper VMSs. They're the cash flow engine that can build such a company. So take Lundin, take Teck, take Rio Tinto, take Hudbay, etc. They all started on a high-grade copper VMS. So that's why we're spending 85% of our cash on advancing El Domo to construction and production. At the same time, we have some pretty exciting targets, and we're looking for the next one. We're also looking for the next discovery because it will improve our equity cost of capital. And I'm sure you've heard, or your viewers have heard, about the Lassonde curve trough. So we're in the midst of a feasibility study. No one cares. So if we can find a new discovery, perhaps we can get out of that trough. So far, we haven't found a material new discovery, so our share price has suffered. But we have a bunch of kicks at the can to make those discoveries by the end of the year. And the most exciting one is our Santiago project. Santiago is very similar, if your readers know or your listeners know, to Solaris's Warintza project. So the analogies are Warintza was drilled 25 years ago, shallow, about 150 million ton resource at 0.6% copper equivalent copper moly. 20 years later, they go in there, do modern geophysics. They find a deep-seated system. They're drilling 1 kilometer holes, and they're onto 1 billion tons plus, and they're already $1 billion market cap. So the analogy we have with Santiago is drilled 25 years ago by Newmont, shallow holes, the copper gold system. You could arm wave a few 100 million tons at 0.5 to 0.6% copper equivalent. We've gone in there, done the geophysics. We see it's a deep-seated system. You could fit several billion tons into that geophysical anomaly. We're going to be drilling multiple 1 kilometer holes into the heart of that geophysical anomaly, twinning some of those historical holes, and we'll have the first results out in October of this year. So you can see why I'm excited about that one. It's permitted. We don't need a big drill program for material re-rate for both Adventus and Salazar share price.
I can see why you're excited, because it sounds good. But what are you going to be doing precisely between now and the end of the year to deliver that? You know what I mean? Because it's like we can talk about the what's, ifs, and maybes to this, but how much more money? What are you doing? What are you hoping to get from that? And what should we be looking out for further down the line on Santiago specifically? Yeah,
we have budgeted this year $2.5 million US for the program. And the bulk of that is for drilling. We currently have field teams on the project right now doing mapping and sampling and determining where we're going to put those 3 or 4 drill holes. We expect to have a drill turning by the end of July on the project. And first drill results hoping end of October. We also have been focusing on the social license to operate. So we've got social teams in all of the regional communities, 30 kilometers or area of influence around the project. That's going very well. We're adjacent to Newcrest and SolGold's concessions that are very high priority for them. Newcrest is a $110 million earning with Cornerstone. SolGold's second highest priority exploration target in Ecuador is just south of us. Both of them are ramping up for drilling over the next 3-4 months as well.
But I know, but again, I don't want to get into the world of nearology or closeology here. I want to go, you can spend $2.5 million. Why is that? I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot of money, first of all, to discover or create a $1 billion type operation. So why should people say, do you know what? This guy's going to spend $2.5 million and he's going to create something that I should be interested in today. There's got to be more to it.
Well, I advise all the readers to take a look at the corporate presentation. There's a beautiful figure in there which shows the historical drilling and that big geophysical blob, that big wine glass blob, which should be the porphyry. And it's easy to see, okay, you twin as one of the historical holes of 325 meters of 0.65% copper equivalent, and you go deep from there. So we know it's a mineralized porphyry. We know it's a large system. We just got to get the drill up there. We drill for $220 a meter and off to the races. I mean, Solaris, off the first 1 kilometer hole, added 300 million market cap. So you don't need to spend a lot when you're getting those kind of results to see a substantial re-rate in the share price.
Okay. And so you mentioned earlier that you're using the Salazar rigs. So how many rigs have you got turning?
So Salazar's have 4 drill rigs. We currently have 3 drill rigs turning. We had up to 7 a few months ago, but we pulled the drill rigs off the drilling of El Domo because it's the infill drilling is done there. The actual drill rigs that are turning El Domo right now are geotechnical rigs that are not Salazar rigs. But we plan to have one of the Salazar rigs in May turning on one of the VMS targets right next to El Domo. And we plan to have one of the Salazar rigs turning at Santiago in July. So 2 diamond drill rigs we have planned for the rest of the year.
Do you think I'm looking at the El Domo copper numbers. I mean, they're extremely good. I mean, by any comparison, they're extremely good. Do you think you need to do more drilling there, keep these high grade numbers coming out, or do you think the market is now saturated with that story? Okay, we get it. Just give us the feasibility and we'll move on, or we will view you differently in terms of evaluation.
The market, I would say, is numbed by our results from El Domo. We have drilled this El Domo deposit to the expectation, the feasibility study, that 65% of the reserves will be proven, 35% probable. I don't think you've ever heard of a company that will have that kind of confidence. So we don't need to drill any further for El Domo, and frankly, it's cut off in most directions. What investors are looking for is a new VMS discovery to augment El Domo. There are 7 VMS targets within 3 kilometers of El Domo to the east, never drilled before, all with larger geophysical anomalies than El Domo. So that's our focus. If we can drill 20 meters of 5% copper equivalent or so, a kilometer away from El Domo, our share price will do very well.
What happened at Pijilí? There's a trading halt.
Yeah, so Pijilí is a super interesting district. It has the highest surface metal concentrations in that district within Ecuador. In that district, Southern Copper has the Chaucha porphyry. So that's a 1 to 1.5 billion ton low-grade copper moly porphyry that's in feasibility. It's actually analogous to First Quantum's Cobra Panama in terms of size and grade. What we've been building is a land position in a horseshoe shape around Southern Copper. We flew airborne a few years ago, and we have 18 geophysical targets that we picked up from the airborne. None of them ever drilled. So this is a 5 to 10 year exploration land consolidation program. We picked one of those to do surface work, mapping, sampling, etc., and then execute a phase 1 drilling program, which we drill 7,000 meters. We completed that program in February. We put out 2 releases, 2 discoveries in the district, the last one being earlier this week. So what we announced earlier this week is a 2 kilometer step from our first discovery holes with the headline number of 20 meters of 3.8% copper equivalent from surface. That's an overprint on top of the porphyry, and that's part of a 152 meter hole of 0.65% copper equivalent. There's one hole about 300 meters away that drilled the porphyry, and it's wide open in all directions. So that last hole was probably the most exciting hole in the district, or in our first phase program. All the holes hit porphyry. It's a very large system, and more work needs to be done going forward. Unfortunately, the success of Solaris and SolGold has conditioned the market for porphyry exploration that if you don't drill a kilometer 0.5% copper equivalent or better, it's no good. I think from a technical perspective, we had a huge win, and that last result is super interesting, but the market didn't even move on it. So we've spent the money we said we would do with our budget on that project this year. We will drill more next time we go back to the market, but that project's on hold for now.
But why the trading halt?
Because it's a material discovery in our view. And the best practices right now, because we're listed on multiple exchanges, including Europe, is to put an even playing field out there, halt the stock if you think there's material news, and then put out the news and see what happens.
Nothing happened. You must be annoyed.
Wasn't the greatest week in the market either, but frankly, it's very interesting. 19 meters of 3.8% copper equivalent from surface. If you put 5 to 10 million tons of that together, that's another El Domo. That's absolutely a mine. We have no idea geologically what's going on there. The silver numbers are extremely high. And remember, it's overprinted on a porphyry. So it definitely opens up a really neat window to explore there and see what we have. But we have to remember what the focus of the company is and what we need to do with our treasury. And that is advancing El Domo to commercial production. And we'll definitely get back there. But right now, it's more about El Domo rather than chasing up on that.
Okay. You did do some drilling at Vacara, didn't you?
Yeah, we put a few holes in La Vacara. We will have a release in May on the results of that and the drilling that will have started on those VMS targets. La Vacara is what we think is a porphyry system. I mean, you can get porphyries around VMSs as well. These were 3 wide-spaced holes. We did about 1,000 meters, so results in May.
Okay. So I can sort of see how you differentiate in terms of your plan of attack compared to a Salazar, your partner. That's clear. And it's clear where your focus is. You've got enough money for this year. So are we saying then on things like Pijilí, you'll come back to it next year, next calendar year? Is that the schedule?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we raised $38 million in a bought deal, the $1.27, substantially higher than where we're trading today last August. And it was a prospectus financing. You have a defined use of proceeds. The bulk of it, as mentioned, is towards El Domo. But we said we were going to drill 7,000 meters at Pijilí, check, made a discovery. We're going to drill 3,000 meters at Santiago, that's still upcoming. We're going to do 4,000 meters regionally at Curipamba. So a lot of that is still in the company.
So, and just help me understand what the future looks like here, because I get the decision to say, well, let's get some revenue flowing. We're going to do the El Domo Curipamba deposits that could get into production relatively quickly. It could produce cash flow to allow us to actually go after these copper porphyries, and that's where the big prize is. If you want to be like a Lundin, that's where the big prize is. And given the resurgence of the copper market, and certainly like sort of six to 9 months with the copper price, is the El Domo project too small for someone to come along and say, hey, we want to take this thing out? Are you determined to get into production yourselves and operate yourselves? Or are there other ways to finance chasing copper porphyries in Ecuador?
Very good questions. So I just ran it this morning. Under spot metals pricing, El Domo has a $500 million US NPV8 after tax. Free cash flow in the first year is $175 million US versus a capital cost of about that. So we're just about over a year payback. This is a unique project in the copper space. I would say the best similarity I know out there would be Silvercrest Metals, that's cheapest in Mexico. So it's rare to find these things, and you really need to think hard if there's M&A proposals on the table. So does it fit for others? Absolutely, especially because of the high precious metals content. At the peak of the gold price last year, the project had close to 60% precious metals revenue, 40% base. Now that's flipped around 60-40. So this project actually caters to gold producers and base metal producers. The Canadian producers are oddities. They're focused on units of production more than anything else rather than profitability, in my view. You look in Europe or in particular the Australians, it's more about free cash flow. So we do have quite a bit of interest for El Domo, in particular as the next mine for take your pick mining company. The problem is we're trading at $1 a share Canadian. Our net asset value for El Domo is $2.25 share based on the analysts. No one's going to pay 100% premium for Ecuador mining project, even with these kind of characteristics. So we need to continue to de-risk, get our share price higher, and see how what happens over the next 18 months. If someone's going to buy us, it's going to be before we start construction, so sometime before October 2022. But that's not really what we're focused on. We're focused on building it. If we do the right things, we got the permits, the price will naturally move higher, and then we'll make a decision if and when a proposal comes in.
Like say, you don't become a Lundin company by selling off assets, do you?
No. You really need to understand what's out there, cherish what you have, believe in your abilities. I can tell you, well, you don't know me that well, but I can tell you that if we build El Domo, we're going to be super aggressive to build a major mining company. We've got all the pieces in place. We clearly have access to capital. We got an expertise in M&A, and it will be fun.
Okay, one last question, and it's around the zinc, because we talked copper, gold so far, and we haven't talked about the zinc. You've got some options with the Salazar resources to pick up zinc projects. Are you really focused on zinc? Do you care about zinc?
I know Merlin likes to talk about it, and our language is we got exclusivity with the Salazars around zinc.
Yeah.
So the reality is the cadastre, so that's the staking system in Ecuador, has been shut for several years. And we know of several properties that are interesting for zinc, but we can't access them. And under Lasso, that's one of the differences between Lasso and Arauz. Arauz said he wanted to open up the cadastre quickly. Lasso, it might not open during this 4 years, which actually is not a bad thing because it makes the value of the existing granted concessions worth more to us. So we're not really looking at zinc in Ecuador right now for as long as the cadastre is shut. We're looking to bolster with additional copper porphyry projects.
Okay, cool. Christian, appreciate your time today. Thanks I've been dying to hear this story. I'm interested in the model, quite frankly, and how you're going to build it out. So stay in touch. Let us know how you get on with the various programs you've got. I'd definitely like to take that phone call. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. This has been fun.